Well, hello everyone. It's Patricia Warby of Alchemy Therapies, my emotional audit, and all the books and all the courses that I'm doing, and another in my weekly updates. And today I'm going to do a very broad sweep. Normally I focus on one thing, but today I kind of have so many little things I want to cover and kind of tidy up. So first thing is a microdosing. So I've not yet shown you this. But in my microdosing journey, where I'm taking psilocybin as a microdose supplement, I've never actually shown you the supplement itself, okay, which looks like any other supplement. I think you'd agree. It's just a little capsule. These are organic, homegrown. The whole idea of microdosing is that it's there to help you heal. It's there to help you focus. Unlike taking high doses where you would kind of have a trip, these just gently kind of massage your brain and help you to kind of make better connections. And I've done a series of 4 or 5 videos on my original journey, which I will link in the description below. And in the final one of those videos, I talked about taking the requisite month off, because that's the protocol I'm following, the Paul Stamets protocol. I think it's been longer than a month. I need to check the dates, and that's my fault. I should have probably programmed it into my calendar, because if I don't program it into my calendar, I never know where I am. But say it's 5 weeks. It's probably around 5 weeks since I finished the first tranche of microdosing, and now I started again. I started yesterday I take 3 of these a day, but I always start a little bit slowly. So I start with 1, then 2, then 3, because I have a highly sensitive nervous system. I'm what's called a highly sensitive person, and that's not just me saying, ooh, I'm special. It's a real neurodivergent difference with the way my brain processes, and so things have to be introduced gently, and that includes all supplements. Any change actually has to be very gentle for me. I'm not very good with very quick changes. My brain takes time to process, and that's a neurological difference in the way my brain works. I've talked about that in the Highly Sensitive Handbook, which I published last year. And I think it's now well known. Well, it should be more widely known, but there are more people sort of talking about highly sensitive nervous systems and the people that have these nervous systems. So anyway, so my goal for this second tranche, because you have to set an intention, really, it's really important. This isn't just taking a supplement in the way of kind of maintaining health. It's about changing maybe your ideas about yourself and what you want to achieve. And that's what I'm going to do with this one. So my idea for this, my goal is to kind of ask, where am I best used? Where might I find the greatest joy? Because I've been doing a lot of different things over the years, and unfortunately part of having a highly sensitive brain is that you tend to be a bit ADHD in some ways. You know, you flit around, and I really want to ask, where's my next focus? What's the next direction? I've got another book on the go, which I've been struggling to find where I want to focus, because there's so much I could talk about. And initially I was going to talk about psychedelics and the the huge promise of psychedelic medicine, which is coming in. It is coming in. But I realized Paul had written a book that covers a lot of that. However, I do have a very interesting, I guess, view of it, because I am a practitioner and he's not. I can't use psychedelics in my work yet for legal reasons, but I think eventually I will be. But what I can use at the moment is something called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And what I've come to realize in my work is that, well, by just moving the eyes across a screen, which is how I work with people online, when people are moving their eyes like this, on a sort of regular rhythm, they go into a sort of trance state where they're able to access emotional memory and sensations and feelings that they wouldn't normally access in your everyday brain state, your normal state of awareness, if you like, where you're focused on tasks and reality such as it is, your perception of reality. And what this does is it sort of takes that awareness and puts it into the background, and it brings to the fore a sense of self, which is how you've created or constructed your view of the world, and what events in your life, what experiences contributed to that. And I've had people spontaneously go back to things that happened to them in childhood, or even their birth, or being in a cot, or unbelievable things that you should have no conscious awareness of. But somehow the back brain and the body, which are linked via your autonomic nervous system, have stored that information, and EMDR seems to bring that up. And I asked the question, how different is that to the psychedelic experience? Well, there are obvious differences. Psychedelics normally involve a ceremony of some kind, unless you're microdosing. They involve music. They involve you usually wearing an eye mask or headphones to block out sensory information and go into a sort of drowsy state. You're still awake, but you're in a very different mental construct. And EMDR, of course, is done with me. You're awake, you're fully cognizant, but I have noticed that the body starts to speak to me in ways that are very unique. One of the things I've noticed is that the blink response, I can actually ask the body questions and get a blink response. If I say, for instance, let's imagine we're doing a session with you right now. Is it okay for me to let go of this experience? And what I'll be looking out for is a response from the body, because we're asking permission from your subconscious knowing, if you like, your gnosis with a G, from your body, whether that experience is ready to be let go. Because often we hold on to experiences that were overwhelming for us in ways that they seek to protect us, but they keep us stuck in patterns that we no longer find useful. And they become very dysfunctional when we're relating to others. If we're holding on to experiences that were painful and difficult for us and led us to adopt certain strategies or coping mechanisms in order to survive. And so if I give you an example, somebody dismissed us, maybe it was mom or dad or a teacher, and we learn, or the belief is, I'm not valuable. I don't deserve to be heard. And we have that subconscious belief in our system, which operates without our necessarily willing it. It's just there. When we come into relationship with others, we're going to find that we subvert that. We undermine ourselves because we don't believe we're worthy. And so when I'm working with people, I'm using this kind of altered state awareness of that is an old belief that I can now let go of. And goodness, I never expected to be doing this work. And when I witness it in people and I see this magic happening, I sometimes feed that back to people if I think they're open to it. People often are, and then they get interested and they ask me, what are you seeing? What are you looking for? And I'll explain, that the body has this way of communicating, which isn't through words, it's through movements, micro movements. Sometimes it's a blink. Sometimes it's a very subtle movement, left or right or forward or back. Sometimes it's an aversion or a stiffening of the shoulders. I had one lady whose shoulders used to rise spontaneously and then fall again. And I asked her to exaggerate that movement because that brings the message to the back brain of whatever it is you're experiencing. So it occurred to me then that I'm working on a very subliminal level. I'm not working on a conscious level when I'm working with people. I talk about working somatically because you are working through the body, but I don't tend to focus on maybe this kind of subliminal altered state awareness because I used to fear that it would put people off and that they'd think I was doing some kind of voodoo magic stuff, which it isn't. The human brain is wired this way. This is the way we work, but 90% of who we are is unconscious, So all I'm doing is bringing it more to the fore, which is what psychedelics do. And so my latest book, title, still going through the motions with the title, originally called Mind Magic, could be Mind Medicine, but I'm coming around to the idea of emotional alchemy, which is different, but it is what I'm doing. All right, I'm working by transforming, which is what alchemy is, something that is not so good into something that's much better. Originally, alchemy meant the transformation of base metals, cheap metal into gold. Okay, and many alchemists of the 18th and 19th centuries used to experiment trying to transform things into gold. And even Isaac Newton was a well-known alchemist, although it's not spoken about because we tend to think alchemy is a bit strange and a bit out there. And a lot of the work I do is very strange and a bit out there. So I think it's a good name for me, having alchemy therapies. But I've been drawn to this. I never woke up one day and decided to work like this. It's just gradually evolved as I've worked more and more with people and watching how the body communicates. So emotional alchemy is, I guess, what I do. It is magic, but I've got to be careful about using that title, as somebody commented, because people will think it's a trick. It's not a trick. It's just how the brain interacts with new information. And so I am still writing that book. It's proving quite difficult. Part of the reason I'm starting the microdosing again, apart from the fact it's in the protocol, is that I want to kind of gain that insight. How is this book going to unfold? What is it I need to tell people? When I wrote my first book in 2015, that was called The Scar That Won't Heal. And I got the title just fully formed in my mind. It just came to me. And I was quite surprised, as you would imagine, because I'd been struggling with the title. I think the title for me is the springboard to creation. And so when I put out on my Facebook group, here are a few titles I'm mulling over, I got loads of responses from all you out there. Thank you so much. Lots of interesting ideas. Somebody came up with Mind the Gap, which I think is so brilliant, but unfortunately it's already taken by another famous author, a famous author. And so I haven't chosen that one, but what a great idea that was. And then somebody else put in alchemy, and I thought, do you know what? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to unite the book that I write with the name of my business, because I'm in the business of alchemy, but it's just not working chemically. I'm working psychologically. And that brings me on to the idea of the body and the mind being connected, all right, and actually a self-organizing complex system. And complexity theory tells us that there is a sort of underlying force that allows complex systems to organize themselves according to the environment. And in fact, the solar system is a self-organizing complex system. Our bodies are, and I truly believe our psyches are the same, and that the neurological wiring, which happens when you remember something, is actually a vibratory pattern. All right. And that's what I'm repatterning when I work with people, because I'm giving them a new message, a new piece of information. Think about the word information that creates a new reality. And my final point today is on a wonderful interview I am in the middle of watching with Jude Currivan, Dr. Jude Currivan, and she's a astrophysicist, one of the few women in that field of her generation. Anyway, there's a lot more women in it now, but I think she was a sort of 1960s, 1970s student at Oxford. And she also is a bit of a mystic and just an all-round wonderful human being. Talking to one of my favorite people, Pam Gregory, who's local to me. She lives a matter of 10 or 12 miles away from here in the south of England. And she's a very well-known online astrologer. Now, astrology has always been the well, it's the black sheep of the family in science, if you like, because it's regarded as somewhat kooky, unscientific. But Pam brings a really strong awareness to her role in mapping planetary systems, and whether you think astrology is nonsense or whether you don't. I love the way she presents it, and she does so with a real awareness of quantum physics, actually. She has a very astute mind, and I love that. And this interview between the two of them, as you can imagine, is really wonderful on so many levels. Apart from their worldview being similar, but in two different fields, they are both older women. Older women we don't hear a lot of. If you look on YouTube, most of the videos are men. Most of the interviews and discussions are men. Where we do get women, it's in makeup videos, although that tends not to be on YouTube anymore. That's on TikTok and other platforms. But it's like women's voices, women's wisdom, women's viewpoint, which is different to men's. You know, we're different wired. You know, our brains are wired differently, and our life experience is often very different as well. Anyway, this is a wonderful interview between the two of them. It's in two parts. I will link in the first part, and then you can follow that to the second part, where they're kind of in discussion, and it's just enlightening and encouraging and hopeful. There's so much on YouTube and elsewhere that is so dismal, you know, and the world is in a terrible place at the minute with war and financial, you know, struggle, and so much that we could improve. And I do think having discussions like this, although they may seem a bit esoteric and a bit theoretical, do enable us to feel better. And when we feel better, we make better decisions, all right? And we also create love and hope in the world. And that's what I'm here to do on a very practical level as well. You know, I go out and I do guerrilla gardening. I sow wild flowers everywhere. I try and create beauty as well as sit here at my desk and talk to my screen. Okay, so I would encourage you all to think very carefully about what you want to intend today, this week, this month, and this year. And try and get into the feeling of it rather than thinking it. All right. How do you want to feel? How do you want to wake up in the morning? Do you want to feel immediately anxious, which is where I've been quite a lot of my life, worrying about things? Or do you want to feel this kind of underlying sense of harmony and purpose? Next week, I'm going to actually review a book which I've just finished reading called I think it's The Power of Harmony or The Nature of Harmony. Can't quite remember the full title, but it's by the King, who was the Prince of Wales when he wrote it. And I'm coming to the end of that book now, and what a book it is. It's really extraordinary that our King has such an awareness. He was always a bit of the black sheep of his family as well, the sensitive one, of course, who didn't want to go into the army and ended up, you know, he's done such a lot to promote community involvement and development, and the Prince's Trust and his school of design and architecture and sacred geometry. He's done an awful lot in his time as the Prince of Wales, and the book happened to arrive at a secondhand bookstore when I was at a garden one day, and I had never knew he wrote it. And so I'm going to be reviewing that next week. Anyway, keep harmony in your lives, folks. Focus on what feels good. And yeah, have a good week. Catch you soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.